Could you walk us through the core work of the permanent mission of Rwanda? Because many people often wonder how a mission at the UN differs from an embassy, like the one in DC, or our other bilateral diplomatic posts. So what makes this office unique in its mandate? Specifically?
I think permanent missions are different from embassies. Embassies are in bilateral stations where a country decides to establish a bilateral relationship with another country and establishes the embassy in that particular country. And actually the embassy can cover several countries depending on the choices from one particular capital. But the diplomatic missions of the United Nations are actually called diplomatic missions, permanent missions. And I think this is because, member states came together 80 years ago to establish the United Nations and decided that sometime later decided that the headquarters should be in New York. The UN is working every day. It means member states have something to do every day at the headquarters of the United Nations. So because the capitals cannot be traveling, or officials from the capitals cannot be traveling all the time to the headquarters, they decided to have a permanent presence and send representatives there. So we are here as a mission of member states, permanently present, to represent our member states in this multilateral station. So the difference I would say is embassies are where the diplomatic relationship is bilateral, and permanent mission is where the diplomatic relationship is multilateral. So you find permanent missions in multilateral stations in New York, Geneva, and the other places where the UN has a presence or has a headquarters. So I think that's the difference. And that's why you may be aware that, for example, I'm here as a permanent representative. But if my minister comes here, depending on the subject on the agenda, he steps in and represents Rwanda for that particular meeting. So I'm permanent representative because I'm here permanently, but I'm ready to step aside when my seniors come from the capital, because the seat I'm sitting on actually belongs to the capital. So I think that's the difference.
Thank you, Ambassador. So while we talk about our scope at the UN, perhaps we can turn to Rwanda's current priorities at the UN. As some of the viewers know, we are in the 80th session of the UN General Assembly, and it's been coined as a busy and decisive moment for global diplomacy. So what would you highlight as Rwanda's main agenda items during this particular session?
Well, first of all, we are a participant in this multilateral community. So we are part of the global priorities. We are part of the global agenda that the UN has decided to pursue collectively, because we participate in the negotiations that lead to those decisions. So to start with, we align with all the decisions that the UN as a global community is pursuing through member states, SDGs, and the Pact of the Future. There are so many decisions that were made that we must, as a global community, pursue together individually. So we are part of that agenda. But as a country, we have our own priorities as well, and our priorities are mainly shaped by our own context. We have our context-specific priorities. We have the issue of peace and security as our priority because of our past. We suffered the genocide against the Tutsi in 1994. We continued to be a victim of security threat. within the region. So we take this seriously, the issue of our security, the security of Rwanda, that has continued to be a challenge since 1994, and mainly because of the neighborhood where the group that was responsible for genocide in 1994 continues to operate from. So that is our priority. And it also happens to be one of the issues that is discussed quite often in the Security Council. So it takes a considerable amount of our attention and of our time. But we are also a very active participant in other progressive agenda. We are part of a group of friends for gender parity because of tremendous progress that we have done in Rwanda to promote gender parity. This is one of the biggest diplomatic caucuses here in New York. I think 153 countries. We are actually co-chairs of that particular group. We are one of the biggest troop contributors. We have troops in different peacekeeping missions, so we are a very active participant in that area as well. We have made tremendous progress in terms of reconstruction, and we are taken as an inspirational country. So when we participate in groups like South or G77, there is a lot we share there. So apart from the general priorities of the United Nations that we are part of, we have those country-specific priorities where we participate, learn from others, but where we also have a lot to offer to those that we work with. So regarding the UN8, so we are now celebrating the 80th anniversary of the United Nations. A lot have changed within those 80 years. If we may look back, when the United Nations was formed in 80 years ago, even looking at the membership alone, maybe it's not more than 20-something% of the membership that formed the UN compared to the membership that we have today. The whole of Africa was still under colonialism when the UN was formed. So Rwanda is one of those that are advocating for serious reforms of the United Nations to align the organization to the current context that has changed a lot in between. So on the occasion of the 80th anniversary, the Secretary General decided to initiate what he called UN80. There is a package of reform that he wants to implement and that we support. We are participating in different tracks of negotiations to discuss the proposals by the Secretary General. We don't know yet what the final result would be, but generally we support the reforms that the Secretary General is proposing, although it is a small component of what really needs to be reformed in the United Nations that we continue to pursue from different fronts, from the African Union and from like-minded groups here at the headquarters that continue to push for more meaningful structural and political reforms of the United Nations.
You touched a bit on the situation in the Great Lakes region, especially on Rwanda's statements in the Security Council sessions, and maybe turning our attention to that. There's been a lot of attention or often misinformation around developments in the Great Lakes region, and what are some of the key points Rwanda continues to emphasize for the global stage in terms of what are some of the updates the viewers should understand about the situation now, and perhaps you may even want to allude to what your focus has been in your early months in New York.
Yes, thank you. I think to discuss this question, we have to go back to the origins of the security situation in our region that we have continued to struggle with for the last 31 years now. Well, I don't know where to start, but let me start in 1994. Although issues in 1994 also have roots in many years back, before 1994, for the colonial times. But let me start in 1994. So the UN failed Rwanda in 1994. The genocide against the Tutsi happened in the presence of the United Nations. The United Nations had troops in Rwanda when the genocide started. They decided to withdraw troops. The United Nations was involved through some of the decisions they made to make it possible for the perpetrators of genocide to escape. The international community or the United Nations continued to be largely unhelpful as this group of genocide perpetrators continued to organize and to rearm and to attack Rwanda from time to time, continued to pursue their genocidal intent, continued to propagate their hate ideology, hate speech, which unfortunately now is even expanding in the region to cover more areas, more countries than it was before. So the UN has not been very helpful in dealing with the security situation in our region. They have had the presence of the UN peacekeeping force for the last 28 years, but it hasn't helped the situation. The number of criminal groups has multiplied many times in the presence of this UN force. The centrality and the role of the Fdrl, this genocidal group that is responsible for genocide in Rwanda, has been deliberately politically diminished in the statements, in the decisions of the Security Council. So our biggest challenge now is here to make the Security Council understand. And understanding is maybe not the right word, because we believe some of them at least understand. Not everybody doesn't understand the situation. We believe some of the distortions are done not for lack of proper understanding, but for different reasons. So we are pushing for the Security Council to place problems where they belong and to address and assess the situation in our region for what it is. Because that is what would enable the Security Council to offer proper prescription. So the Fdrl is at the heart of the existential threat that Rwanda feels we have, and any other approach that does not recognize that reality is misguided and may not help. There are also internal issues that has to be dealt with. Issues of the Kinyarwanda speaking Congolese, who are largely marginalized, persecuted, and most of whom have been in refugee camps in Rwanda and in Uganda. So those are the issues, factual issues. If you ask me what am I trying to do, is to bring the facts and to persuade everyone to understand the facts and treat them as such. Not allow misinformation and narratives that are deviatory or distortions to be the ones that are prioritized and to be the ones that guide decisions, but for the Security Council to make decisions based on facts. So this is all we are doing. Put facts before the council and persuade everyone to understand the facts and treat them as such, so that we can work together to address the root causes of the problem and resolve them.
Yeah, so since ultimately it sounds like our broader aspiration is a stable and peaceful and prosperous Great Lakes region, where cooperation replaces conflict, And in this regard, perhaps we can mention the peace processes that are currently underway. What are some of the ways international partners can genuinely support efforts towards stability? And based on what you are seeing today here at the UN, how are they engaging so far?
Well, first of all, let me say that Rwanda understands more than most the cost of insecurity, because I think we suffered the deepest magnitude of insecurity more than anybody in our region. So when we push for the right approaches on how to deal with issues of insecurity, and when we advocate for working together to make our region safe for everyone, it's basically based on that context. Even our participation in different peacekeeping missions are actually informed by that background. We know the cost of insecurity because we have suffered insecurity. Now, back to peace processes. Yes, we have an opportunity that, in my assessment, is a unique one, where powerful, friendly countries are involved as mediators. We have one track going on in Washington. We actually signed an agreement between the DRC and Rwanda on how to address the issues between us, how to address the issue of insecurity caused by Fdrl, and also for Rwanda to be able to lift the defensive measures that we put in place when that threat is actually eradicated. So that track of discussion is going on Washington. In Washington, and I believe it is we have some positive developments there. Rwanda commits that we shall do our part of the bargain to make sure that we are compliant with the provisions of the agreement as we committed. There is another track that is going on in Doha that is basically between the AFC M23 and the DRC government, which addresses internal issues. Internal issues of exclusion, issues of governance, issues of citizenship that is denied to some people. And my understanding is that track is also going on well. And I'm saying it's an inter-Congolese dialogue, but which also affects Rwanda and the other countries in the region, which is why we also continue to have interest in what is going on in Doha. Because I said earlier, for the last 28 years, we have had Kinyarwanda-speaking Congolese as refugees in Rwanda, more than 150,000 of them. There are even a bigger number in Uganda. So there are inter-Congolese issues, internal issues, but whose ramifications also affect the neighboring countries, including Rwanda. And there are issues about the rights of people anyway, that even those who are not directly affected should feel concerned with. So we have this opportunity to make these agreements work, to make the negotiations that are still going on in Doha be properly concluded, and to make them work. From the point of view of Rwanda, we can only say we should work together not to lose this opportunity for us to have peace, lasting peace in the region, because that's what we all need. There is no development without peace. There is no peace without justice. All those things must work together. Again, just as we know better the cost of insecurity, we also know better the cost of vulnerability caused by insecurity in our reconstruction efforts. We have done a lot to put our country together again. So definitely would be concerned with anything that puts our efforts in the situation of vulnerability because of insecurity.
Thank you, Ambassador. So in closing, perhaps I'm just going to ask you this question. Thank you for sharing these insights and for giving our viewers an inside look into Rwanda's growing footprint here in New York, but particularly at the United Nations. And so our last question would be, what would you say defines Rwanda's voice on the global stage?
Yes, thank you. Rwanda is generally positively regarded at the global stage. Some of the aspects that I already alluded to. We are a country that was literally written off 30 years ago. We lost more than 1 million people. We lost everything. The social fabric, the socio-economic fabric of the country was completely destroyed. So I think there are quite a few that believed Rwanda would bounce back. And I don't even think there is any who thought would bounce back except ourselves. So we have since then invested a lot to reconstruct our country. We have made a lot of progress in different fronts. Security inside Rwanda has been one of the best. The independent rankings are evident about that. Despite the ever-present insecurity coming from our neighborhood, but the security of Rwandans inside Rwanda has been one of the best. We have been a very active participant in international fora. We contribute troops to peacekeeping missions. We have very progressive policies in gender parity. We are doing well in complying with the timelines of development goals set by the United Nations. We have homegrown solutions that we continue to share with the others in the South-South group here. We have different countries coming to Rwanda to share with us or to learn from us or to work with us on how to navigate their own situations of transitional justice, countries that are largely emerging from conflicts. So I would say Rwanda is highly regarded in the international platform. We provide leadership in different areas, some of which I have discussed with you, and where we don't hold positions of leadership, we are active participants and working with others. So I would say my assessment as a permanent representative to the United Nations is that Rwanda is on the right track, and that we hope we can continue to work with everybody to ensure that issues that we need to resolve are also resolved in the interest of everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.